You may not believe that I actually stay up to watch Saturday Night Live on a regular basis. Why, you say, Terry? Are you up from 10:30 to 11:30 on a Saturday night? It's actually one of the few things that my husband and I have a chance to watch TV together. He's getting ready, and I'm getting ready, so it's just a fun, relaxing thing. We've always been huge Saturday Night Live fans. Kirsten Wiig, if you watch Saturday Night Live, left the show about the middle of last season. It's been a few weeks, and she's, if you've heard about the movie Bridesmaids, she's kind of the comic brains behind all of that. But she used to have a little character called Penelope, who was a narcissist. And Penelope, anytime you said you did something or had something, Penelope would always, she'd always be twisting her hair. Well, I have, you know. You said you have a blue dress, she would say, oh, I have 2 blue dresses. And no matter what you said, and she's always sat in a situation at parties, but no matter what you said you had, she would always trump you. There's one particular episode, you know, she said if you told her you'd been to parties, oh, I got lots of parties. She's always twiddling with her hair. I wish I should have worn a wig. She's always twiddling with this hair. I've been to lots of parties. I've had lots of hors d'oeuvres. One woman actually, the guest, actually said, hey, Penelope, guess what? I have a cousin who lives in space, and I recently lost 500 pounds. And you know what? My wife and I got down here paddling a kayak down the street, and 2 minutes after my baby was born, she spoke French. So the woman's trying to, you know, sort of beat Penelope at her own game. Well, without missing a beat, Penelope goes, all I have to say is I have 60 cousins who live in space and other dimensions, and I just lost 700 pounds, and I invented kayaks, and I invented the street, and by now I have 6 babies who spoke 45 languages before they were even out of the womb. And oh, by the way, I can fly too. Well, the comedy, as you can see, I'm glad you laughed, because I would have felt bad if you hadn't. This particular character is always trying to be one better, do one more, just can't stand for anybody to be better than she is. And we laugh at it in Saturday Night Live, but it's only funny because there's a germ of truth in it. I'm sure you've encountered people that just can't let you say anything about their family, about what's happening with their job. You're thanking God for a new car, they've got one better. Your child has gone to one school, their child has gone to this school, and on it goes. And there are some people who just have to be in that place that the Pharisee is in this story, where they're standing on the Temple Mount and just so publicly grateful to God that they are not like all the other lowly people, that they have been blessed so much and God has surely favored them because they're just wonderful people. Walter, my husband, has a saying, oh, and aren't you wonderful? And when he hears people bragging on themselves too much, you're such a wonderful you are. The Pharisee is living in a time when the outside, the external things, make the difference between your standing and your justification with God. And we've talked a lot about in sermons over the years and also in Wednesday night and Sunday school about the bodily purification that's so important to the Jews. You can't even approach the temple unless you've cleansed yourself, any bodily fluids, anything that's not right, you have to go through a multiple-step purification ritual in order for you to be even allowed to physically be in the temple, let alone offer a sacrifice. The state of the actual animal that you would offer in the temple had to be pretty clean. In fact, if you were wealthy, you might get to offer a ram or maybe even a lamb. And if you weren't that wealthy, maybe all you could do was offer a dove or a pigeon. And you would actually be made to feel bad that you could only bring in a pigeon instead of bringing in a huge ram. Now, if you can imagine a place where animals are being publicly slaughtered, it's probably not a very pleasant place to be, with blood dripping and flowing everywhere and animals being killed, and then some of the priests would go off and roast the meat, and they might let you have a piece of the meat that you brought in, but a lot of that meat was brought for the priest's own living. But the notion that what I do on the outside is what makes me a better person is what this Pharisee was standing in. I know all the laws. I am doing everything I need to do. I'm fasting not just once, but twice a week. If Penelope had been there, she would have said, I'm fasting 4 or 5 days a week. I give not only 10% of my income, but I give 30% of my income. Penelope is the kind of person that Jesus doesn't want us to become. And by telling this story of the Pharisee, Jesus focuses not even on how much the Pharisee is giving. If you'll notice, the tax collector stands afar off, not out where a lot of people can see him. But the tax collector is offering a prayer really of confession and asking God to forgive him. Do you know what tax collectors did? Tax collectors were the inside guys, the Jews who went to help collect the taxes that the Romans wanted from the Jews. Tax collectors were despised because they were seen as traitors to their own people, working with the Roman government, which was so brutal in its oppression of the Jews, and actually making a living, because the tax collector would charge you a surcharge on top of the tax he was collecting. So he was making money off of the backs of his own people. So nobody liked the tax collector. And can you imagine perhaps this man finding that this is maybe the only way that he knows to make money to support his family? And in his heart of hearts, he realizes what a horrible thing this is, that he has to sort of exploit his own people to make money. And he is desiring to be just as close to God as the Pharisee. But he's standing there, not talking about all the wonderful things he's done. I'm sure the tax collector probably gave money to the temple, just like the Pharisee did. But he's not talking about all of those things. What the tax collector is more concerned about is, I'm not doing enough to get close to God. And it has nothing to do with how much money he gave. It has everything to do with his sense of what his own relationship with God is like. And Jesus actually says in this very short parable that the tax collector is the one who is justified or made right with God. Not because he gives 10%, not because he fasts twice a week, not because he's done everything that the law tells him to do, not even because he stands boldly in resplendent robes and proclaims his goodness to the rest of the world, but simply because he knows that it's necessary for him to be closer to God, and he just wants to be better. He just wants to be better. Well, legal compliance in giving, it is Stewardship Sunday after all, and usually when we hear this parable, we talk about the right way to pray and the wrong way to pray. The right way to talk about what you've done, which is not to boast about what you've done, right? And the wrong way, or the right way, to humble yourself before God in prayer. But when I saw that the Pharisee said, I give 10% of my income and I fast twice a week, I thought about people who can't always give monetarily what they want to give. And to have the Pharisee tell it, that just because we give more or are able to give more, that we would somehow be in some higher standing before God, is not only not biblical, it's simply not true. What I hear the tax collector saying is, I want to be a certain kind of person, and I'm not there yet. God, would you help me get there? Have mercy on me. I know I don't always do things the way I should, but would you help me? Whereas the Pharisee is saying, oh, wonderful me. Nothing left for me to do to get in God's good graces. I am the epitome of all that you people want to be. Fall in line, observe, and do. Well, there's something just really, really wrong with this picture. So what can we learn from the Pharisee in terms of our giving and maybe even our praying? I've been talking all month about this day when we would bring forward our pledges. We have sent you letters, we have sent you budgets, we have talked to you, we have talked about giving your best gift. We have talked about the importance of not only money, but time and talent, the need to engage and provide service and leadership, and so many new people this year, as you'll hear soon from our nominating committee, have answered the call to enter service and leadership in our congregation in a new way, and that is all such an important part of stewardship and giving. But I would make an argument that the thing to learn from the story of the Pharisee and the tax collector are a couple of things. It matters where and how we stand in relationship to what we do for God. There are some in this room who can give more and will give more. There are some who want to give so much more than they are able to give, and that's okay. But in this place, as we stand before God and as we really return only a portion of what God has given to us, our hearts and our spirits must remain humble. Giving what we can, not great or small. Thanking God that we have what we have to give. Thanking God that we're able to give something. Perhaps thanking God that we continue to have something to give. Not boasting about it, not insisting on getting credit. I've never heard this in this church, but there are some churches where in order to give an offering, who will give $100 this week? And you get in line, and who will give $50? And you get in line, and there are some people who take great pride in being able to stand in the $100 line week after week. What I know we don't have is people talking coffee hours. So, what'd you pledge this year? Oh, really? Is that all? Oh, I thought surely you'd be able to do more this year. Humility. Just knowing that you give is more important than what you give. We trust God to take our little and to make it much, to make it what it needs to be. And if I have one request, is that you give. No matter what you have, you should be able to give something. We simply ask that you give. And neither we nor God will stand in judgment of your own inherent goodness or your love for Him or this church. We trust that because you are here, you love God and you love this church, and so you will share what He has given you. An open hand can be seen in both ways. If I extend my hand, you don't know whether I'm giving or asking. And sometimes when we hold too closely to the things that we have, sometimes we open and the very thing that we've tried to protect is no longer there. If we're giving to get something in return, if you're thinking that somehow somebody's going to see your name on a list and say, well, gee, maybe we should ask Tim. There's no Tim here, that's what I'm choosing. Maybe we should ask Tim to head this committee. Because if Tim heads that committee, maybe we'll get some more money from him. Or maybe Tim comes to us and said, did you notice my pledge this year? I would like to head up the nominating committee next year. You know, there are churches where these things happen. My point is that the open hand should be one simply to give, not expecting anything in return. Just a hand that's giving, grateful to give, and knowing that the very act of giving is a blessing both to this body and a blessing to God. Everyone shares in the work here, so everyone gets the credit. The workshop we attended, one of the disciples, ministers who's consulting with us a little bit, was wanting to know if we had a church where people enjoyed getting involved in service. And so, sometimes people just want to be in a place where they get to work and do work in the community. And we were like, we have that. We have lots of people who want to do lots of work in the community. And so again, our hearts are there to do the work. And so that open hand to both serve and to give is so important. So we need to stand humbly before God with whatever it is that we have, knowing it's not what we give, but that we give. We have an open hand that's not seeking for anything in return, but really seeking to offer whatever it is that we can in time, treasure, and talent. And finally, just joy in giving. I'm so sorry that the tax collector has no joy. And it's ironic that the Pharisee has joy for all the wrong reasons. The Pharisee's joy is all about him. And the tax collector hopefully walked away from that prayer of confession, perhaps thanking God for having heard his prayer. Aren't you joyful for the blessings that God has allowed you to receive? That even if you are on a fixed income or you're not making what you want to make, that God seems to meet your need over and over again. And those of you who have maybe more than you need, that you have more than you need, that you're able to share, that you're able to give. That's an attitude of thanksgiving and gratitude that we all need to be in. When we see God not only meeting our needs, but we see Him allowing us to participate in the meeting of needs. A woman stopped by just as we were getting started with Sunday school and left an offering for Fe Esperanza. All she put on the envelope was Spanish church, as needed. She doesn't want me to say, she told me her name. Conveniently, the Lord has allowed me to forget the woman's name. I just wanted to give it to someone here before they come to worship because I don't want them to know who this is. Wow. She just saw a need, doesn't want any credit for it. I have no idea how much is in the envelope. But as I took the envelope, I just thanked her and said a prayer that whatever's in this envelope, it will meet the need. And today, as we give our pledge cards, and there are extra ones out there if you need them, I hope that you'll give it forward with joy, humility, and an open hand to say, whatever I can do for this work that I believe in, for a God that so loves me, I'm willing to do. And I believe if we all come with those attitudes of humility, openness, and thanksgiving, we will see that when the final tally is taken, that our needs will be met, and as we move through the year, God will continue, if we continue, as I said last year, to pray specifically for the needs that we have, that God will continue to send what we need. He'll continue to send people. He'll continue to send those with time and talent, and those with financial resources. And He will meet your need this year as you have honored Him by giving of your first fruits in honoring Him. As you bring forward your pledges today, thank God that you're able to do so. We sang this wonderful song. Thank you, Lord. I hope that you today will give with an attitude of joy and thanksgiving, asking that God would continue to bless the work of this church. And Penelope will have nothing to say. She won't be able to do anything better than the grateful giving from grateful